Tom, what is it for your organization? What is the shift or the change that's happening in the external environment that gives you an opportunity to serve?
So we're talking now about Claro? You want to shift there? Or what?
Your choice.
Okay. I think I covered the environmental shifts that make this whole trend in why we want to grow bioscience and biotechnology in the state of Florida. From Claro's standpoint, we're in a situation today where lots of innovation is coming out in terms of new drugs, new therapies. But what's really needed is the ability to match the therapy to the patient to make sure that it's provided at the right time and provided in the right way. And so that convergence of technologies where you look at pharmaceuticals, you look at device delivery systems, you look at bioinformatics, the linkage for that is the right kind of diagnostic systems that can give you that specific information about the individual patient that pulls that all together, makes that actionable, makes it real. And that's changing the healthcare paradigm completely. And it's a change that can happen because of advances in technology. And it's advances in scientific technology and it's advances in information technology that merge together. And so for Claro, what we're doing is leading the way on an entirely innovative approach for diagnostics and looking to become one of the enablers, one of the drivers for realizing this vision of personalized, patient-specific care that's targeted, that's cost-effective, and gives the right result in the individual patient. And so what's driving that? On one hand, it's being driven by technology and new approaches that are available. And on the other hand, it's being driven by a scarcity of resources. We don't have all the money that we want to be able to continue to put into improving healthcare. And the best way that we can make that better for everyone is having better information, being more intelligent about it, and targeting the right treatment to the right patient. And that's really the paradigm shift that we're about as a company. We're an integral player in that. And as we go forward, we hope that we can look back at some point 5 or 10 years out and know the technology that we've advanced has been integral in making that happen.
That would be fantastic. And I think everybody in the room would agree that it would be even more fantastic if it came from Tampa Bay.
That would be great.
Now, Nathan, I'm curious as to, you know, Steve Jobs had that thing not long ago where he said people don't know what they want until I build it for them, or some quote like that. I'm curious about Sean's sort of read on that. I'm sorry if you don't mind me asking him a question.
I'm fine with it. I think of all the things that he said, the thing that kind of struck home to me the most was it's not the consumer's job to tell us what they want. It's kind of our job to observe them. Again, look for that hassle map. What makes people uncomfortable? What makes no sense at all that consumers are doing every day?
Design in response to that.
Right, and I think there's actually two parts to that question. One is, how do we observe people and create products to solve their pain points? And the other is, how do we come up with the next iPad or iPhone? I can answer the first one, I think.
Yeah.
The second one?
Yeah, Steve Jobs.
Yeah, let him do that one. Or somebody following in his footsteps follow or do that one. But I think, you know, we came up with our product because I saw my girlfriend ordering DVDs. She watched the infomercial on TV, and then she walked over to the desktop computer and ordered it, and then they shipped them to her 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
While I'm sitting there watching Netflix. That makes no sense at all. And watching her go through that kind of hassle made me go, there's a product here. How do we make this happen? So observing people, observing their pain points, they may not realize their pain points. When I worked in corporate for 10 years, I heard people say every day, well, that's how we always did it. Which drove me crazy. And the more you dig into that, the more you dig into that, the more you go, well, somebody made a bad decision 10 years ago, and you're still doing it.
Well, things were different 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah. And things are so much more easier to change. You just have to have people that are willing to say, this makes no sense. Yeah. And again, the organization has to support that. You know, there's plenty of people that can stand up and say, we don't like the way this works. The organization can say, well, that's too bad. But you have to have a flexible organization. You've got to have a innovative, spirited organization that accepts people saying, we don't like the way this works and we want to change it. that's another way to start generating innovative ideas and new ways, new processes, and more efficiencies in organizations. So that's my short answer.
Either of you have a question for Sean? No, I like what happened here is that we've made it much more concrete, right? We had a high-level discussion about change in 4 pretty unique verticals. Let's put some meat on the bone. Give me a top tactic for managing or perhaps leading change. Very tactical level in your organization, or perhaps on a team that you've been on in the past, that you've seen this, you've experienced, so that was really, really effective, and here's why.
I'd like to answer that one, and it's because, and here's why. In my former corporate job, I tried to implement a system that allowed everyone except management submit ideas to an organization as long as it lined up within the objectives and missions of the company for that year. If they submitted a unique idea, they got $5. If it went to a certain level in the organization and got accepted, it was $10. If it went all the way out and became a product that consumers were using, it was $1,000. Those types of programs that let people submit their ideas, get those moving out into the organization, I think those are of tremendous benefit. I think they're completely overlooked in a lot of places, and I think the creative spirit is kind of for a lot of people shut down, unfortunately, and I think a lot of people get sandbagged or bogged down in day-to-day activities that they're doing. I think there's a tremendous amount of creativity, and I really think that's true here in Tampa and St. Pete, that there's all kinds of creative people out there with tremendous ideas. And I think this region is really poised for a lot of growth over the next 5 to 10 years.
All right, because this is a particular place that's near and dear to my heart. Tell us more. It seems like it's almost easy to solicit the ideas, to get them from people in an organization, especially once you've established a climate or an environment where people feel safe expressing their creativity or making that contribution to your cause. That at some point you have to manage these ideas and then execute on them. Do you have a sort of an example of what really worked, or folks might be able to take with them what was really helpful in terms of accomplishing that?
Well, we used SWAT teams, and the SWAT teams came up with, these are the ideas that we have. We'll start vetting them and building revenue models and business models, and we'll start kicking out the project plan, or at least the overall objectives to accomplish, and then hand that off to another team to go execute. Problem is, the original concept is not what always gets released, but you've got to be comfortable with changes taking place as the product goes. It's just part of the natural evolution of things. Unfortunately, I wasn't there long enough to make that a consistent process. Very difficult to do, but had a lot of fun doing it.
When you say SWAT teams, you're talking about an analytical business tool, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, or
cross-functional teams.
All right.
Finance, IT. What's that?
With weapons or no?
It did not get that far most of the time, but no, you bring in cross-functional
multiple
teams.
Skills.
Yes,
yeah.
And you really need that because you get multiple perspectives from within the organization.
It's the concept of diversity, and frankly, the research again shows that you have a better solution when you have more diverse perspectives than if you had brighter people. In other words, 10 bright people, 10 diverse perspectives. Better solution with 10 diverse perspectives.
I like your example too, and there's actually a show now, but I can't think of the name of the one where the boss goes. Thank you, Undercover Boss. So when I first came to the agency, I had the opportunity. One of our largest programs was about to start, and so I went as a volunteer. And there's about 20 other volunteer staff, but they didn't, I mean, a handful knew that I was a new person, but they also have jobs and lives, and they just come to do this project. And so most of them didn't know. And of course, the youth did not know. And so I was just doing what everybody does and, doing my groups and taking out the trash and wiping tables and doing everything. And so the great thing was that I could see it differently than if I had sat at the desk and said, oh, tell me how the week went. So I could feel it differently. And at the end of the week, we wrote each other notes, to say how it went this week. And, oh, you did such a good job. So I got this great note that said, you did a really great job and you hung tough all week. And maybe someday you could be a director. And I loved that. I loved that. This person was looking at me as someone who had some potential, who had worked hard, who had learned some lessons.
And they were right.
And they were, thank you. But to me, I mean, as a leader, I need to feel it. I need to see what it looks like and feel it. And then, as you're saying, the diversity. I love the book that about generations in the workplace, because when perhaps if we all sat together working on a hard problem, we would get so far. And then perhaps if we invited in Ruben and Hunter to join the conversation, they would look at it and turn it upside down and have a whole nother idea, because they're coming from a completely different perspective, a different age group, a different life experience. And to me, that diversity is so important. And fortunately, I get to practice that part every day.
So if I can build, let's go deeper in that, because you placed an importance on involving youth in the change process early on in the process, right? So instead of imposing a top-down, here's what a change solution looks like, it's, okay, we're going to take not just diversity, diversity comes in many shapes and sizes, right? And you have psychological diversity, you have diversity of religion and race and gender, etc., right? So talk to us about incorporating the views of young people in solutions that older people who have to implement in organizations who aren't accustomed to being flexible, right?
You know, that's what's so interesting. For example, we have youth on our board of directors. All the programs that we do, it would be a youth-adult partnership presenting the program. And so what we have learned is that the adults need some training and support about how to hear the youth, how to engage them, not to just make a seat at the table. Oh, I'm so glad you came. Great. How's school? But, you know, let me explain to you, when I just said RFP, here's what I mean. Because I know I'm talking in all this lingo, and I want to make sure that you can contribute. And it completely changes the dynamic. I think also when you're talking about a partnership, if you are accustomed to presenting, and I'm sure you are, and then I connect you with a young person, okay, great. That might seem like a great idea, except that you're really accustomed to presenting. And so as an adult, you might want to continue on your way and then say, oh, and by the way, tell me what you think. Instead of backing up and from the beginning, let's talk together. Who's going to lead? Which part are you stronger on? I'm stronger on this side. Let's do this together. To take the time, you will learn some important lessons about yourself as an adult when you have an opportunity to work with someone else.
The only thing I would add is it goes both directions. You know, the truth is that that young people love their grandparents and don't like old people, and old people love their grandkids and really don't like hanging around young people. I mean, that's what the truth is. So when we're talking about the language issues that you mentioned, there really is not unlike 1,000 other issues, by the way, not just about age, but about cultural differences. It's a bilateral discussion that needs to occur. So we also have youth on my board, and it's about language that goes both directions and understanding how is it the communication is most effective in order to create change.